So Marina Mabrey has responded to to everything that's going on.
Marina Mabrey just looked like she was just unhinged out there after looking at this.
The highly anticipated showdown between the Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever spiraled into absolute chaos, leaving fans and analysts alike in disbelief. What was supposed to be a fierce but fair battle between two playoff-hungry teams quickly unraveled into one of the most controversial games of the WNBA season. By the final buzzer, the stat sheet read more like a police report: 6 technical fouls, 3 ejections, and 2 flagrant fouls, all crammed into one emotionally charged night that felt more like a street brawl than a basketball game. But amid the flying elbows, heated trash talk, and rising tensions, one explosive moment became the flashpoint that ignited social media and divided the basketball world. Marina Mabrey, seemingly out of nowhere, delivered a blatant cheap shot to Clark, one of the league's brightest rising stars. Clark was caught completely off guard as Mabrey aggressively shoved her to the ground in what looked like a targeted, unsportsmanlike hit. The crowd gasped. Replay after replay showed the same thing. It wasn't a basketball move. It was a statement. What stunned fans even more than the shove itself was what happened, or rather didn't happen, next. Despite the obvious nature of the foul, Marina Mabrey was not ejected. She was allowed to stay in the game, drawing only a whistle and moving on as if it were just another play. The silence from the officials was deafening. Meanwhile, just minutes later, Sophie Cunningham was tossed from the game with barely a warning. Her ejection was swift and decisive, leaving her teammates furious and fans fuming. The contrast between the two incidents couldn't have been more glaring. One player assaults a rookie phenom and stays in, another plays with heart and gets the boot. The inconsistency in officiating was called out immediately and relentlessly. Social media erupted. Hashtags trended within minutes. Commentators, fans, and former players took to every platform imaginable to slam what they saw as a blatant double standard. Why was Clark, who has brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA, not being protected? Why was Marina Mabrey given a pass for behavior that many call dirty and dangerous? And why was Sophie Cunningham, who came to her teammates' defense, punished without hesitation? In the hours following the game, the debate only grew louder. Some called it a failure of officiating, others suggested it was emblematic of a deeper bias within the league, a resistance to the spotlight and attention Clark has brought with her. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear: the WNBA now had a credibility problem on its hands. And this game might just be the tipping point. The aftermath of the Fever Sun brawl wasn't just about stats or standings, it was about fairness, protection, and how the league chooses to treat its stars. And for many fans, the message was loud and clear: the rules aren't being applied equally, and the consequences could reach far beyond just one game.
Are here the night after WNBA Fight Night. Sophie Cunningham putting JC Sheldon in a clinch. Marina Mabrey targeting Caitlin.
If you thought the incident itself was infuriating, just wait until you hear how Marina Mabrey responded afterward. Instead of showing any remorse or taking accountability for what many are calling a blatant cheap shot on Clark, Mabrey's reaction only added fuel to the fire. Her post-game demeanor came off as dismissive, even smug, leaving fans outraged and calling for immediate action from the league. It wasn't just the hit, it was the lack of consequences and the attitude that followed. In a league striving for professionalism and growth, how do you justify allowing a player to stay in the game after delivering a potentially dangerous shove, only for her to act like nothing happened? Meanwhile, players like Sophie Cunningham get tossed for far less, simply for standing up for a teammate. Now the pressure is on the WNBA. Fans, analysts, and even former players are demanding accountability. If the league truly cares about player safety and integrity, then the rules must be enforced fairly, consistently, and without favoritism. Suspending Mabrey wouldn't just be about one play. It would be about sending a message that dirty tactics won't be tolerated, no matter who you are or who you're playing against. So what do you think? Should the league step in and make an example by suspending Marina Mabrey? Was her reaction after the incident just as bad as the act itself? We want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let the debate begin, because one thing's for sure: fans aren't staying silent anymore.
Oh, and Marina Mabrey's going to get ejected. If the officials saw that, Marina Mabrey is going to get ejected.
Well, they're going to go and look at it.
All they had to do was just eject her. All they had to do was eject her, and none of this happens. If the referees had ejected Marina Mabrey, nothing else happens. The Sophie Cunningham situation.
Then, after all the chaos had died down and the headlines began to fade, the league made a quiet almost sneaky move, one that didn't go unnoticed by eagle-eyed fans. Without any official press release, without any bold announcement or public explanation, the WNBA quietly reclassified Marina Mabrey's foul on Caitlin Clark as a flagrant 2. No video breakdown. No accountability statement, just a silent update buried deep on the league's website, naturally. This raised even more questions. First and foremost, how did the referees miss something so obvious in real time? With multiple angles, a replay center, and plenty of eyes on the floor. How was such a blatant act allowed to slide with just a standard foul call? Was it incompetence, bias, or something more systemic? And then there's the timing. Why did it take a full-on avalanche of public outrage, viral clips, furious commentators, trending hashtags, and widespread media backlash for the league to finally make a correction? The silence from league officials in the immediate aftermath only made things worse, feeding into growing suspicions that the WNBA is struggling to handle its own rising spotlight and internal politics. Now the biggest question remains, will Marina Mabrey face any real consequences? Broadcasters and analysts during the game openly suggested a suspension should follow, with many emphasizing that the hit on Clark wasn't just excessive, it was intentional and dangerous. Fans, already upset about the league's inconsistent enforcement, are watching closely to see if this flagrant 2 reclassification is just symbolic, or if the league is actually prepared to take meaningful disciplinary action, because at this point, it's not just about one foul or one player, it's about the league's integrity, how it protects its stars, and whether it can maintain credibility in the face of growing scrutiny.
So, there are 4 players fined in that game. 4 players fined in that game, but the referees, the scariest part about all this, is that the referees came out with their report. They came out with a report and said, the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant 2 penalty. And it was given as a technical foul, not even a flagrant.
We're about to dive into exactly how and why the WNBA decided to overrule its own officiating crew. A rare move that's raising even more eyebrows across the league. Was it the right call? Did it bring clarity or just add more confusion and controversy to an already chaotic situation? And more importantly, did it actually help fix anything, or did it just pour more fuel on the fire? But before we unpack all of that, before we analyze what this says about the league's internal process, the officiating standards, and the growing pressure to protect its stars, we need to go back to the moment that lit the match. Let's break down the now infamous shove that started it all. It wasn't just a hard foul. It wasn't even a borderline play. It was a full-on, deliberate shove delivered by Marina Mabrey right in the middle of live action, with Caitlin Clark caught completely off guard. 1 second Clark was sprinting through the lane, and the next, she was sprawled on the hardwood after being blasted from behind. The crowd erupted. The cameras caught every angle, and almost instantly, social media exploded with outrage. But somehow, despite the obvious nature of the hit, Mabrey was assessed only a common foul, no flagrant, no ejection. What followed was an eruption of disbelief and criticism that extended far beyond the arena. Fans, players, analysts, and even broadcasters couldn't believe what they had just witnessed or how little was done about it. And that's when the league quietly stepped in, making a retroactive call to upgrade the foul to a flagrant 2. But did that correction come too late? And did it really address the heart of the problem? We'll get into all that, how the league's late decision has only deepened the frustration among fans, and what it means for the future of WNBA officiating. But first, let's examine the play that turned a regular season matchup into a national controversy.
A lot of it is centered around the last 46 seconds where Sophie Cunningham hard fouls JC Sheldon. She gets ejected, JC gets ejected, does Lindsay? I think Lindsay gets ejected. And in watching the broadcast, even the broadcasters at the time mentioned if they would have just ejected Marina Mabrey, this probably wouldn't have happened.
A huge part of the controversy swirling around this game centers on the chaotic final 46 seconds, a stretch of play that perfectly captured the boiling tensions and the glaring inconsistencies in how the game was officiated. It wasn't just intense, it was explosive, and for many fans and commentators, those final moments weren't just the climax of a heated game. They were the predictable result of the referees losing control. Long before the final buzzer, it all started when Sophie Cunningham delivered a hard foul on JC Sheldon, a play that, while aggressive, looked more like a frustrated reaction than anything malicious. The refs didn't hesitate. Sophie was ejected immediately. JC Sheldon, caught up in the aftermath, also got tossed, and it didn't stop there. Lindsay Allen, trying to intervene and calm things down, somehow ended up ejected too. Within seconds, 3 players were gone, and the game was in absolute disarray. But here's where the frustration really boils over, as the broadcast crew pointed out in real time. This entire meltdown could have been avoided. During the earlier incident, when Marina Mabrey blatantly shoved Caitlin Clark to the floor and unprovoked, dangerous cheap shot, the officials chose not to eject her. They called a common foul and let her stay in the game, and that decision, in the eyes of many, lit the fuse for everything that followed. Even the broadcasters couldn't ignore it, as tensions escalated and the ejections piled up. They openly questioned the officiating. One said what so many fans were already thinking. If they had just ejected Marina Mabrey when she shoved Clark, this probably wouldn't have happened. That single line echoed across social media, repeated by analysts, former players, and fans alike. It became the rallying cry of the night, because it wasn't just about one bad call. It was about the domino effect. When the referees failed to properly discipline Mabrey, they sent a message, intentional or not, that dirty play would be tolerated. That silence from the officials created an atmosphere where retaliation felt inevitable. Players took matters into their own hands, and by the time the refs did start handing out penalties, it was too late. The damage was done. In the end, those final 46 seconds became the microcosm of the game's larger issues: inconsistent enforcement, lack of protection for star players, and a league struggling to manage the spotlight that comes with increased attention and rising stakes. And while the league later reclassified Mabrey's foul as a flagrant 2, it didn't erase what had already happened. The ejections, the chaos, and the fan outrage were already baked in. Now, the question lingers: if the refs had made the right call when it mattered most, would that chaotic final minute have even happened? It's a moment that will be dissected for weeks.